and make sure that everything is working for them. We'll be starting our program Wisdom Rising shortly with Nina Rao, Lopön Chandra Easton, and special guest Bob Thurman. So as you make your way into the space, welcome. This is Wisdom Rising. We'll be starting in a minute. We are broadcasting direct live stream from Menla, which is the retreat center of Tibet House US. Thank you for joining us, and we will start shortly. Welcome to Wisdom Rising, everyone. We will be starting momentarily. We're having people come in, get settled, and then we will proceed with tonight's program, Wisdom Rising, with Nina Rao, Chandra Easton, and special guest Bob Thurman. Hi, everybody. We're just waiting for our guests to arrive. That would be our presenters, Nina Rao and Chandra Easton, and a special guest, Bob Thurman. Good evening, everyone. We are welcome everyone to Wisdom Rising. My name is Beata Tikos, and Wisdom Rising this evening, at least on the East Coast, because I know we're being joined from all over the globe, actually. We have a great gathering this evening, according to our time. When the pandemic closed Tibet House temporarily in the city last year, it was about a day or two before Nina and Chandra were supposed to present the first Wisdom Rising. And we pivoted, as people are saying, and went online. And this is now our 15th gathering. It is more or less monthly, although it has become something where even we have presented it twice monthly, which has been really special for people. This celebration is the stories and the devotional meditations focusing on the goddess. In this particular case, it is the goddess and the goddesses from the Hindu traditions and from the Tibetan traditions. I am privileged to introduce Dorje Lopön Chandra Easton, Buddhist teacher and translator, who studied Buddhism and Tibetan language at the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives in Dharamsala, which is founded by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. She also received degrees from USCB's Religious Studies Department and co-translated Sublime Dharma, a compilation of 2 texts on the Great Perfection, published by Vimala Publishing in 2012. Chandra has studied extensively with Lama Tsultrim, who is a pioneering female Buddhist teacher, national best-selling author and founder of Tāre Mandala Retreat. And Chandra is also the assistant spiritual director and lead authorized teacher at the retreat center. Chandra was enthroned as the Dorje Lopön Vajra teacher of Tāre Mandala under Lama Tsultrim and given the name Lopön Yeshe Dawa Zangmo by His Holiness Ganden Tulku, excuse me, Zangmo Rinpoche, who presided over the ceremony with Lama Tsultrim. She is joined by Nina Rao, who learned traditional chants, bhajans, from her grandfather in a village in South India when she was just 9 years old. The chants quietly stayed with her until she rediscovered chanting with Krishna Das in New York in the 90s. For many years now, Nina has been the business manager of Krishna Das's touring and plays and sings with him. 27, she recorded the track Nina Chalisa on Krishna Das's CD, Flow of Grace, and in January 2013, she released her debut album, Anantarayami, Knower of All Hearts, and released her second album, Anubhav, in 2018. When Nina met Lama Tsultrim, she immediately felt drawn to the stories of wisdom women in the Tibetan traditions and the 5 Dakini wisdom mandala practice. It is also my privilege to introduce their special guest this evening, Professor Robert Thurman, founder and president of Tibet House US, internationally renowned scholar of Tibetan Buddhism, served as the J. Tsongkhapa Professor of Indo-Tibetan Studies in the Department of Religion at Columbia, and was awarded the prestigious Padma Shri Award in 2020. Time magazine chose Bob as one of the 25 most influential Americans in 1997, describing him as a larger-than-life scholar activist destined to convey the Dharma, the precious teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha from Asia to America. Welcome, and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Beata.
Thank you, Beata. Yeah, so we're so thrilled to have you here with us. And in fact, I met you in 1997. I didn't know time named you the most influential teacher.
Well, me and Andy Weil were the two funky ones.
You're the funky ones.
The other ones were George Soros and Madeleine Albright, and they're like real people, you know. And Andy Weil, they showed him all covered in mud, holding up a twig like a herb, you know. And me, they showed me holding a statue of the 7th Dalai Lama in front of the alma mater at Columbia. You know?
Nice.
And a funny picture like that. So then we were the two, like, what? Well, we both survived anyway. So that was that, you know.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, Nina and I are thrilled.
I'm sorry.
I know. Go ahead. Get your mic.
What?
It bodes well that the first thing I do is start laughing.
That's good. Well,
I really love sitting with you, Tenzin. It's just so, we learn so much from you and so joyous.
Really?
So
Well,
thank you for joining us today.
I do like it when you laugh. I do feel myself a little bit shy with 6 taras. Tara emanations sitting around there, just a sort of dumb American Yankee kind of person, but myself. So I'm glad if I can help you laugh. That's nice, you know.
Absolutely.
That's really nice, Nina.
Yeah.
Nina is. I see Nina is also the reincarnation of Anandamayi Ma. I discovered her in Hawaii. She was chanting, and I thought it was Anandamayi Ma. I couldn't believe it. You know, when you were by yourself chanting in that church.
I was so nervous because it was, Ramdas was in the crowd.
I know,
Remember?
but why was that making you nervous? He was happy.
He was, but I didn't, I mean, I guess he was, but
He
I
was,
was
he
so
was.
nervous, yeah. And then you, when I got off of the stage, you were sitting on the side. And when I saw you, I thought, oh no, even Tenzin's here, this is too much, I can't take it. And when I got off the stage and I walked down, you said, Anandamayi Ma.
That's right. That's
And
what
then I got
thought.
even more nervous.
That's what I thought.
But thank you, I appreciate
Okay,
it.
I actually never met Anandamayi Ma, but Nina did. Nina met her, and she gave Nina her blessing, you know.
Yeah.
So that was kind of nice. Anyway, you were wonderful. Chandra's just Buddha, you know. So we don't have to worry about that. So what? So
what do we do?
here we are. What do we do? Well, I was just reading the first line of the Tara Tantra. Since it's about Tara, right?
Yes, that's why we're
But
here.
I hadn't remembered that, but it says, thus have I heard at one time, which is the famous Evam maya shrutam ekasmin samaye. And then it says the Bhagavan was seated on Tara's boat
Yes.
beneath the heavens above.
Yeah.
That's really really something, because she has a boat that goes among the stars, because it's named Dalai can mean star, right?
Yes.
Although it means savioress, which I'd say, but there is actually an English word for female messiah, but it doesn't look good in print.
Right.
Messias. It looks like they don't clean up. Messias. It's called messias, and there is such a thing as a messias. There's a word like that, and that's what Tara means. But here she's in the stars with the Buddha. He was seated with a circle of assembled bodhisattvas who were distinguished by their inconceivable, extraordinary wonder. Of course, because Buddha was sitting in a boat in the sky. That's like sci-fi,
Totally.
If the conspiracy theorists get a hold of that, they'll have him up there like Spock, Dr. Spock, beaming down from Tara's boat. But that would actually be correct, actually, very likely.
True.
That would actually be correct. It's so beautiful, And then the Bhagavan, even his name, Bhagavan, I won't get into that, to address the sons of gods among the deities of the pure abodes. Those are the Brahma deities. You know why they're called pure abodes?
No.
Brahma Viharas, you know why?
Yeah.
There's no gender there.
Right.
Every being has male and female components complete in themselves. So therefore they don't have that, I need a date on Saturday night passion, They feel happy within themselves,
Sure.
And they have bodies that are more porous, I think, less rigidly boundaried. But they're not seeking mating. There's no mating. But then in the tradition, they have wrongly translated it as just that there are no females there.
Right.
It's like they say in the Pure Land, there's no females, because Pure Lands are connected to the pure abodes, in fact, in the way that they describe it in the Buddhist universe. But the point is, there's no males either, because the beings there have no gender.
Right.
They're all bi.
Right.
So therefore they're content and they don't bother you. They don't molest you.
When did it happen?
What?
When did it happen that when the translations happened that somehow the females were removed?
From the beginning, because of the male patriarchal chauvinism of your homeland, that wonderful, marvelous, multi-country subcontinent called India. And they were very patriarchal and male chauvinist dominated, and all of the Asian cultures in which it's been, except maybe Kerala. Kerala has a matrilineal tradition still, where the woman owns the property, and the uncle brings up the children, and the father is expendable.
Yeah.
And he's around as long as he behaves. And that's a very, Kerala is very advanced among the United States. They're all literate, 95%, much way ahead of the others. And so that's the only place. Otherwise, it's very male chauvinist. So they think they blame women for all sorts of things that are really men's faults.
Right, but how long ago did this begin?
Thousands of years. Probably, I think, you see, Maria Gimbutas, who was the great Lithuanian, you know about her?
No.
This is Tāre, she was an incarnation of Tāre for sure, Lithuanian. And she was a famous archaeologist in Europe. And she was the toast of Europe when she studied what were called the Kurgan people, who were the same motorcycle gang, chariot warriors that came out of Central Asia about 6,000, 7,000 years ago, and conquered into the Danube area that would seem to be a more peaceful society. That was the richest alluvium in Europe, was the Danube.
Right.
And then they made her the toast of everything. She was the top seat archaeologist in Paris and blah, blah, blah. And then she dug deeper because she managed all the digs in the Danube area. And when she got down to 8, 9, 10,000 years, she found evidence, which I find convincing, and some people find very convincing, of a matrilineal, at least, if not matriarchal, society, with societies where there were not much smashed skulls or corpses with arrows stuck in the rib cage, and no much fortification in the cities, and seemingly prosperous and whatever, plentiful, bountiful culture, but clearly matriarchal. So then all the male archaeologists in Europe busted her, and they said that's all wrong, can't be, and blah, blah, blah. And so she ended up at UCLA, actually. And she migrated, and she wrote this wonderful book called The Civilization of the Goddess,
Yeah.
that gives pictures of all the pottery and all the shards, whatever the things are evidence, you know. And then the Rihanna Eisler is the best way to enter it, who popularized that, you know, who has that thing called the Partnership Society
Yes.
of bringing the females equal to the males, finally, where we will have a peaceful world. She argues very appropriately, I think. And she called the Chalice and the Blade.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And but that's based on Jim Bhutas's research,
Okay.
which is really quite wonderful. So the reason I brought it up is that it seems to me and some archaeologists that the Harappan civilization in India before the Vedist people came from through Iran and from also Central Asia, the same type of warrior types, behind the warrior god Indra, which is Odin, you know, say is a cognate of Odin, right? And the sky god Dyaus, which is like Zeus, you know, so it's really a Western thing. And they came in and they settled in the Garden of Eden, which was the Indus Valley, richest place in Eurasia. And so that male chauvinist thing starts there. And then it might connect, pure speculation on my part, but it might connect to what the Chinese have discovered. They used to talk about the Yin dynasty sometimes, or sometimes the Shang dynasty, they would call it. And then everybody was poo-pooing, oh, that doesn't exist, it's some Confucian myth before the Zhou dynasty, which is then the male patriarchal Chinese Confucian culture comes from. And but lately, the Chinese archaeologists have found evidence of the Shang or Yin dynasty, which was again female dominated. And the Chinese love of divination, which they do with various mechanisms, but initially it was women, like the Delphic women, who would get in a trance and would tell them what was going on, what would happen, you know, predicting the future.
Well,
so that's how long it was.
Yeah, so that's so interesting, and it leads me to this first question that I have for you, which is about Tāre's origin myth. You know, there are different variations of it, and there's a beautiful account of it here in this book that we're talking about, the Tāre Tantra, Tāre's fundamental ritual text, Tāre Mula Kalpa. Lovely translation by Susan Landesman.
That's right.
Yeah.
We published that. That's our publishing series.
And so what I thought I'd do is read just the two paragraphs.
Please.
Read the two paragraphs of this origin myth that explains in a beautiful way the beginning of this this being who became the Buddha Tāre, right? And I would love for you to keep going on this theme of gender, sex, whether it's meaningful or not in terms of becoming a Buddha, and how she rebukes the the earlier view of women needing to become.
Well, that's really key.
Yeah. Okay, so this is taken from the collected works of Jaya Pandita. This is in her the background on Tāre. So it's not actually from the Tāre Mula Kalpa, right? So it's just Susan Landesman is setting the stage about Tāre and her origins and where she comes from. And then I'd love for you also then to talk about perhaps the crossover between the Hindu tantric Tāre and then the Buddhist. But this is the first part. Okay, yeah.
Whatever you tell me.
Right.
I will try to do that.
Okay, so this is from this account of her origin myth. It says, formerly, in beginningless time, in the world realm called Manifold Light, there arose the Tathagata Lord Dundu Bishvara, the sound of the drum. Also living there was the king's daughter, Jnana Chandra, moon of wisdom, who greatly revered Tathagata's discourse. She worshipped the Buddha together with his retinue, an infinite community of disciples, the Shravakas, and the enlightened beings, the Bodhisattvas, for hundreds of millions of years. Every day, she made offerings equal in value to the amount of jewels, completely filling 12 miles in each of the 10 directions. And she generated the thought of enlightenment, bodhicitta, which is the generation of the foremost thought. At that time, a group of monks implored the princess, if you aspire to serve the teachings of the Buddha, due to your own roots of virtue, you will be transformed into a man in this very next life. In order for it to turn out that way, it is proper to do so accordingly. Okay, so wait, this gets better. Princess Jnana Chandra rejected the monk's advice, offering her rationale for pursuing the bodhisattva path in female form. And this is what she said. There is neither man nor woman, nor self, nor personhood, nor notion of such. Attachment to the designations of male and female is meaningless and deludes worldly people with poor understanding. She then vowed, many desire enlightenment in a man's body, while not even a single person strives for the benefit of sentient beings in a woman's body. Therefore, I shall work for the benefit of sentient beings in a woman's form as long as samsara has not been emptied.
That's so wonderful.
It's so good. I never tire of reading of her response. And it's so characteristic of the later Mahayana sutras treatment of gender, right, and sex, like found in the wonderful sutra that you translated,
Yes. Yeah, but that's even earlier. You know, there was a translation of that into Chinese in the 2nd century,
right,
in which that same incident occurs.
right. But this idea that women, that gender or sex doesn't matter, that it's just conditioned reality, differs from the earlier sutras, right, where they said women have to be reborn as men.
Yeah, yeah.
So she's establishing a
that's-
distinction there.
That's the whole monastic thing, you know.
Yeah.
And then there's even the sacrilege, the horrendous thing that some modern Buddhist feminists get upset about, how Buddha hassled his foster mother and his former wife about being nuns, about being bhikshunis. I don't like using, actually technically we shouldn't say monk and nun, because they're actually mendicants.
Right.
Bhikshuni doesn't mean someone who goes to be alone. It means someone who lives on alms and only seeks enlightenment and doesn't do any worldly work, right?
Yeah.
Which means a mendicant bhikshu and bhikshuni living on alms. So anyway, he hesitated. People think he tried to say no, there couldn't be any female mendicants. And that was because he was a male chauvinist, that some people do say.
Sure, yeah.
But that's wrong. They don't. That's a Western thing of not understanding there is such a thing as a Buddha, which is not a normal human being.
Yeah.
He was a normal human being. In fact, he was a yuppie, princely brat.
Right.
But privileged Siddhartha, you know.
Yeah.
But although sensitive, of course, and very, very intelligent and capable. But the point is, but he became what is a Buddha, which is not just a normal human. You know, it's like a being has an awareness that is big as infinity. You know, so therefore he wouldn't make such a mistake. He did it only because he knew the tolerance of the male chauvinist society would not allow the women freedom to be mendicants for that long. Instead, he said it will shorten the tolerance and therefore the longevity of the community, the mendicant community, because the women were the slaves of the men. The daughters were like sold off for marriage to some funky old goat, you know, but who might have had wealth or something when she was like 13 or 12 or 7 even. And although they wouldn't be delivered until puberty probably, so they weren't that cruel. But and then the wife was a complete thing, and then the only time they had power was as a mother-in-law over a wife. You know, that was the only time they seemed to have some kind of power if they had produced a son.
Right.
You know, if they didn't produce a son, then also they'd be cast off. You know, so it's really, really terrible, and it persists all over the world. You know, you know that's I caution everyone should read Marilyn Waring's book called "Counting for Nothing: The Labor of Women." She's a New Zealand sociological professor who's really tells it like it is, you know, on the planet still today, you know.
Yeah.
But now is the time when you know the women should be rising, right? That's what it's
Wisdom
about,
rising, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So tāre is it. Of course, the other thing is it's just the whole tradition is moving within a society dominated by males for thousands of years now, and this kind of a story is like a hint that Buddha has something else in store for them, but he keeps it a little under wraps, like it's one incident in the Vimalakirti,
Right.
it's here, then there's a big thing in the Avatamsaka Sutra, there's 10 of them who have incredible stories, you know, including Buddha's mother and so on, you know, Mahadevi. And so it's very, very, but they don't shove it at people, like for example, the word garbha. Tathagata Garbha, everybody goes on nowadays about Buddha nature, oh, you're Buddha nature, you're Buddha essence, you're Buddha this, you're Buddha that. And every like macho, like weird Rambo says, oh, at least I have a Buddha nature, you know. And every dog has a Buddha nature. But the word is not nature.
Right.
Garbha doesn't mean nature, it means womb.
Womb.
And they didn't want to inform the guys that they had a Buddha womb. They were like, what? I don't have a womb. What do you mean? They're not going to do that, the males. You know. So even there, and in Tibet they translate it as essence, Ningbo, right? But they didn't say ngel, but actually the real meaning of Granpa is ngel. I mean, it has therefore many other derivative meanings, so it's not wrong. But I'm just saying it's hidden on purpose within the chauvinist society somewhere. But then, and that's the lateness of the evidence of tāre being a big deal in Buddhism, of like post-Tantra emerging around 4th, 5th century. They think 8th century, but actually 4th or 5th. It's clear. They think that's because they made her up or something like that. But no, she's always been there. And the point is, anybody who becomes a Buddha then becomes an infinite being. So there's no limit. You're all tāras. I might be like a tāre. I got busted into being a man this life because I did something bad or something. You never know, because you're all tāras. There's a tantric vow. Anybody who thinks, any yogi or yogini who despises any woman and thinks she's not enlightened, loses their vow. So that's why I am talking, but I'm a little shy.
You're keeping
to
that
talk
vow.
to all of you. Enlightened beings. Oh, there's another guy there. Oh, thank God.
Yeah, Ron.
There we are.
Tenzin, can I ask you a
What's that?
question? I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
Why do you think that men did that?
Why?
Yeah.
Well, His Holiness once said he thought that the military behavior depended on physical strength. And men could beat people up usually. I mean, there were definitely female mud wrestlers thousands of years ago, but the majority, the bigger bones, etc., muscle, whatever, and the aggressive way of dealing with the cortisol, or the males, although they were chicken. I don't tell the story of the mighty hunter. My version of the mighty hunter is the mighty hunter was hiding in the cave, a tiger was growling outside, and Mrs. Mighty Hunter was cooking with a little sharp stick that she used to put the little bit of meat they'd managed to bring home 3 weeks ago on the fire. And she said, guys, we're starving here soon, and I have babies to feed, and I have you to feed, and me to feed. And so see this little stick, find a big one, and sharpen the point, and get out there and get that tiger. And they said, really? Well, why don't you do it? No, they said, no, you guys do it. I'm a cook. I'm cooking. You go out there. And then they finally made a spear, and then they went out pushing each other in front of each other with the tiger. And then eventually they created weapons. But basically they've been chickening out all their thousands of years and getting worse and worse, more violent weapons. So there's a lot of things that's from the physical domineering thing. But maybe he's been listening to too many anthropologists, I'm not sure. So it could also be that somehow the matriarchies of the early Eurasian great continent, which is the only one we know anything about, that from literatures and things and archaeology, I know much about, and that is that maybe they became kind of stagnant or something, and then maybe some nomads came and broke it up, like the Vedic nomads, like the Iranian nomads, the Kurgan nomads, etc. And some what are called Yueqi who went into China, and they broke down the sort of matriarchies, and then they dominated. And so maybe it's more of a cycle, and it's an increase of violence for sure. And maybe though, if you don't fall into, there is one trope in Buddhism that fits with Kali Yuga trope in Hinduism, that it's going to get worse and worse and worse and worse, and really to where people will be 2 or 3 feet tall. They'll all live in like a hole. It'll be like Syria, the whole planet. And they'll just go out and shoot each other for a while, before breakfast or something, and it'll really be awful. And we get to the worst it can be. And human beings will only be this big. They'll live like that's Kali Yuga. And then something makes it change. Nobody really says why. And it builds back up. And a few thousand years after that, maybe 10 or 20, it's unclear also, Maitreya will come. Yeah. And then there'll be a great time when Maitreya comes. It's a more prosperous planet. And he only takes 1 day to be a Buddha. And he's a Brahmin caste, not a warrior caste, because the warriors are not important. He doesn't need to be in the top caste, because the Buddha is supposed to show Buddhahood from the top caste,
Okay.
so that people will admire it. You know, not say, oh, he went off to be a mendicant because he was like under the Brahmins. You know, the Brahmins pretend they were always the top in India, but they weren't. They were just they were working for the warriors. You know, who commissioned them to do their rituals and so on. But on the other hand, if we go on the Shambhala thing, in a few hundred years from now, which I don't agree with, it should be a few weeks, but at least maybe it's a few generations, there will be a balance of male and female. His Holiness always talks about he might be a female, the next Dalai Lama, because although he won't be a political leader, he said, but he might be a female. But if that's what the Tibetans want, but it would be good for more female leaders, just have less wars on the planet. We can't have wars anymore, he feels. He's right, the war is obsolete. And the men jump to that option, you know, in a crisis. So if that's the case, we'll have 1,800 years of Shambhala, where we'll have equal male-female. Everyone will be really getting to the mystic essence of all the religions and not just the rituals and the orthodoxies. And it'll be a great time. And
That could
as
be
I
in a
said,
few
it
weeks,
should be a
too.
few weeks.
Let's do that in a few
Well, in the
weeks.
60s, it was to be tomorrow.
Right.
But then we've had to deal with the Republicans.
The Republicans, I know, we need to get rid of the Republicans.
And so it's a few weeks. But actually, my one Mongolian root teacher,
Yes.
by the way, Jaya Pandita was Mongolian, by the way. He was a Mongolian guy. And he made the best tāre statues because he was so much in love with his wife. He was a layman. And he modeled all his tāre statues on her instead of on like some abstraction, you know.
Very cool.
And they're really amazing, the Jaya Pandita. Zanabazar, oh yeah, maybe that was that. Well, a guy worked with them, Zanabazar did that.
Yeah.
So they were very fond of tāre anyway in Mongolia, very much so.
Yeah.
All the Mongolian people, the dolmas all over the place. Dolmas and dolkars.
Uh-huh.
It's their favorite name for...
Well, this brings me to my next question
Yes,
perfectly,
what's that?
which is, you know, the absolute nature of the Great Mother, or tāre, in this
Yes.
context is, you know, beyond characteristics. It's
Yes.
the natural state. It's our Buddha nature, right? But then there are these articulations of tāre in 21
Yes,
forms.
right.
Now, of course, they're numerous. They could also, you know, be as many as the stars in the sky. But for some reason, we have 21 tāres
Yes,
from this praises to the tāre, you know, 21 praises to tāre
Yes.
that arose around the 11th century.
Yeah,
India.
well,
It's
each one is a
tantra.
different form of tāre, right?
Right. So I wondered if you could talk about that and how this sweet little dharani, right? It's a text. It's like a meditative, almost like a long mantra that is recited in
Yes,
Tibet.
yes.
They memorize it even as children
Yes.
and recite it on a daily
It's dangerous
basis.
though, if you recite it a lot, you'll get pregnant.
Oh, really? I didn't hear that. Watch out. And so it gave rise to these different traditions. You have the Surya Gupta, right, from India, and then the Atisha lineage, and also then the later Terma cycle of the Nyingma
Well,
and the
thank heaven
Chogyur
Tara
Lingpa.
brought Atisha to Tibet.
She brought him to Tibet. Could
She
you tell
told
us
him to
about that?
come.
Tell us.
And then
please.
before that, she sent him to Indonesia to recover the spirit of enlightenment, of love and compassion. I don't like thought of enlightenment, by the way.
I don't either.
Because it's not just a thought,
not a
it's a
thought.
spirit, and it's not a mind either, it's a spirit.
Spirit.
But mind is better.
How do you translate bodhicitta?
I like it, but I don't like it for Italians. They don't like it because when they hear the word spiritu, they think of either the Vatican Bank or a ghost.
Right.
Those are the two things they think of when they hear the word
Interesting.
spirit.
Well,
And
how
we,
do-
we have spirit, can be, you know, we can also think it can be like a ghost, you know. But when we were spirit, we think of in the spirit of things, you know, in the
Right.
spirit of infinite love and compassion.
Yeah.
That's the spirit of enlightenment. So I think that's successful, that one. I think people will get that when I die. After I die,
Bodhicitta.
they won't mind.
Right.
So, you know, translators are really fussy. They won't
I know.
adopt other people's words. They get very attached to their own word. You have to die first before they'll canonize your words. It's like that. And well, the 21 tāres, I don't think we should make too much out of the number 21.
Yeah, but people ask, why
Except
is
it's
it
a
21?
memorizable thing because people want to memorize. In those countries, they don't have printing, they don't have Xerox machines, you
Yeah.
know. So people need to memorize. So they didn't put it 21,000, you know. So I mean, there's countless tāres, you know. There's
Right.
endless numbers of tāres. And fortunately, or the world would have been wrecked long ago. And but it's a beautiful thing, and it's really, the Tibetans are so much into it. And also she, of course, as you know, Avalokiteshvara is considered the infinite compassion of all Buddhas, and he also has infinite numbers of incarnations. But that's the other story about when he became discouraged.
Yes.
But before he became totally discouraged, which ended him up with him being chopped into 1,000 pieces, where he had to be saved by a mātā. That's the second level. But the first level of discouragement, he started weeping. And then taras manifested out of the eye, out of the teardrops.
Yeah.
And then they said, don't freak out and be discouraged about the fate of the beings. Of course you're meditating compassion, that's really nice and love. But you're a man, you're not going to get a lot done. We'll take care of it, don't be discouraged, And there were two of them, right? The green one and the white one, and then they went off and they did different things and pacified the conquering warriors Tibetans, who then pacified the conquering warrior Mongolians.
Right.
And that's all the deeds of Tara, I'm sure, no question, in my mind. And so the 21 then is a manageable number of some of the major forms, where she is, she's fierce as Kali, and her Sri Devi form. She is, she's like Durga, in the golden form or whatever, She stamps her foot and the place earthquakes. But she's like that, Buddhas are like that. They are not accused, they can't be accused of being gods in the sense of creators, because there is no creator, luckily, for two reasons. One, it's beginningless, and two, it isn't created. You like that? Yeah. I thought of that coming over here that you might like that.
That's fabulous.
It's actually uncreated. We're not created. It's all uncreated here. What seems to be here is illusory.
That's right.
And that's beginningless. So that's uncreated in two ways.
Yes.
There's no creator. And because no God, and that's why Brahma likes Buddha and Indra. They really like him. And they totally gave him his first bath. They did. And why? Because when he later grew up and then he came to enlightenment, and then Buddha didn't feel like talking. He said, no matter how much I talk, no one is going to get it. So I'm just going to hang out in the garden here in the forest and relax. And then Brahma said, no, you have to teach. And then why? He said, because I want you to tell the beings that when things are good and they think Brahma did it, I'm happy and I don't mind being worshipped. When they have horrible things happen to them, I really don't like their bad vibes, hating me, thinking that I created this evil, horrible thing, because I didn't. I try to do my best, but my powers are limited. Right? So God asked, therefore God wanted Buddha to tell people, not that he didn't exist, which Buddha never said. Any Buddhist who tells you they're atheists is completely wrong. Of course they exist. They gave him a bath. They did, and those Brahmas, and they can multiply their bodies too, actually. It's not only Buddhas that can do it, but they're limited, again, more limited than a Buddha, than male or female Buddha. And Buddhas are beyond male and female. They are, and therefore they can manifest as either one, right?
Yeah.
Or bi, or Q, or D, T, and however many you
Gender
would have.
non-conforming.
The LGBTQ, whatever it might be. They can do that if that helps that person that they're dealing with. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
So don't be terrified about the 21. But on the other hand, 21 are beautiful, and what's the sound?
What did you bring?
And 21 are really beautiful, and I like the one who just stamps her foot, and everybody trembles on the whole earthquake. And I saw that. I had a vision like that once in a dream about the Vajrayogini.
Yeah.
And the Vajrayogini was talking to world leaders in that dream. And she has a Katwanga staff, which is like a shaman staff, like this, showing the mastery of the technology, psychoneurology of life and death, the central channel, yogic central channel. And she stands on what people think is a solar disk.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of emanations of earth between her feet and the thing, but basically her feet are on the solar disk. But it isn't really a solar disk. It's a supernova solar disk.
Wow.
So it's the most powerful destructive energy you can think of. and she keeps it confined in a disc and stands on it, and gets a little like winter thermal air, heating from it. But the point is, every time she would tell any one of the various world leaders that she was not going to see any kind of deployment of any nuclear anything, she would take the katwanga and make this like bing thing. It would sound like that. It would go like bing. Wow. In the dream, it was a sound that almost would wake me up each time. It did eventually. And they looked like they were going to follow that order. So a nuclear explosion is not as powerful as love and compassion, in my humble belief. But I don't experience it. I just saw it in a dream. But I believe this is the case. And when my original root guru, he drew himself up at one point when people were fearing nuclear exchange, in the 60s, the Russian thing, Cuba, And he said, no, there will never on this planet be a nuclear war, don't you worry.
Nice.
But he was the kind of person that, okay, I can't explain it, but you felt it was serious.
Yeah.
You did, when he had that sort of
That's
mood.
reassuring.
So Tara has a form like that.
I know.
I don't know, would you know which one that is? I forgot.
Well, there's Tranya Chenma, at least in the Nyingma cycle, it's 14th. She stomps. She's Prakruti, actually. She's wrathful in that
Oh,
form.
Prakruti,
She
yeah,
stomps.
Prakruti.
She stomps the
Yes,
earth.
she has a furrowed brow, yeah. That's actually,
But
the
there are
green
few-
Tara is mostly, she's connected with this green Tara.
Green Tara.
Because the green one is the Mogasiddhi, the mirror. Oh yeah, that's what I was trying to say. I'm sorry, I digressed. I was trying to say that she is the incarnation of the miracle-working power of all Buddhas.
That's right. Beautiful.
Like his compassion, and she, of course, and they're all the same, but her emphasis is the Mogasiddhi, Kirtanustana Jnana, the intuitive wisdom that can do anything, accomplish anything necessary to be accomplished.
Wisdom.
And that means sometimes showing the form of, but I never say wrathful.
What do you say?
I don't like
Fierce?
saying
No.
wrathful
What do you
and
say?
peaceful. I say mild and fierce,
Mild and fierce.
because it describes the
Nice.
the manner, but it doesn't project that they could actually be genuinely angry.
What do you say for the middle? The joyful. Do you call it joyful?
Joyful, blissful,
Semi-wrath.
orgasmic.
Orgasmic. Okay, good.
Especially that nonsense of simultaneously coalescing and all these weird euphemisms, and even innate. Because sahaja means lotus and jewel is what is saha. Sahaja.
Sahaja, yeah.
What's together, what's born together is the union of male and female. So that's what it is.
Oh,
And that's what, so I'm a Wilhelm Reich fan from youth, before I met Buddhism. And you know Wilhelm Reich, I hope.
his name is familiar.
Well,
Maybe
he was
explain
so
this.
great. He was greater than Freud and Jung.
Right.
But he wrote, his book was The Function of the Orgasm. But his concept of orgasm was not the normal procreative, what the psychologists would call genitally organized orgasm, which is just at the bottom part of the central channel.
Right.
It was where a dyad would just be together in peacefully, without, huff and puff sort of routine.
Right.
And then if they could focus, and if they were what he called orgasmically potent, which meant they had undone traumas embedded in their nervous system in the form of neuromuscular armoring
Yeah.
that made them insensitive to their own inner sensations
Wow.
and their streamings, that they would be swept up together in a vortex of blue energy,
Wow.
deep blue energy.
Indeed.
But I never read, I don't know whether he succeeded in that or not, or whether
What
he
was
just
his
imagined
influence?
it. But this was 1910, 20 Munich, and places like that, and Vienna, and he wouldn't have had any yogic anything or seen anything.
Amazing.
Yet he knew that because again, he's emanation of something.
Yeah.
You know.
Essential channel.
So that's why the Sahajananda is orgasmic joy,
Yeah.
right? I think.
Sounds good. Let's keep going with that. It's not
But
on
as
my
I-
question list.
As I
but
mentioned to the
let's talk about
scandal, to the scandal-oriented Dharma centers, that means heart orgasm, throat orgasm, brain orgasm, navel orgasm, right? Total central channel.
Total
whatever.
central
And
channel.
it's like, and that's the zone of death, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, where the clear light, which is nothing to be scared about. Don't
I'm
look
not,
serious
I'm not.
about death.
I-
Death is a great human invention
That's right.
because you can, if you're being captured by horrible people and you don't know to call Tara, because then she'll help you escape. That's one of the 8 things she'll do. But if you don't know that, the way of getting away from having your fingernails pulled out is to die. So that's why they make a big skill out of just torturing you enough not to kill you, so they can harass you worse.
Yeah.
They're cruel people. But you can luckily, then you become clear light.
Yeah.
You can be born in a higher level of the hierarchy than them, and you
Yeah.
can get them to stop doing it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So
Okay.
death is a good transition.
I'll meet you there.
If you know how to do it, which I don't, but in theory, okay? Okay, so
Which one
homage
is
to
it?
she who crowns the head of all Buddhas, whose action is victorious without limit. Possessing every transcendent perfection, the Bodhisattvas themselves rely upon her. Oh yeah, well this is the other thing. Even though you have this male chauvinist business
Right.
in a lot of the sutras, it's not older or younger, it's just they're there. But the sutra itself is the mother of all Buddhas,
Right.
Prajnaparamita.
Right.
And so Tara is also same as Prajnaparamita,
Yes.
same as Vajrayogini, Vajradakini, whatever you want to call it. They're all same. And she is right there from the beginning. She's the greatest,
Right.
All the Buddhas worship her 100%.
Yeah.
The Buddhas themselves do.
The mother of all Buddhas.
Oh, yeah.
The genetrix of the awakened state.
What?
The genetrix of the awakened state.
That's right. She is.
The womb of totality.
Yes, that's right. And then
So really it's just the editors that put
What?
in all that cultural misogyny,
Well,
right?
it
It's
just
not the
collects
original
there,
teaching.
They have even in Buddha's own time, there were mendicant, his cousin or half-brother, whichever it was a mendicant. And then he used what the energy that he got, the power from learning some of the mendicant things. He didn't learn compassion, so he used it for power and sorcery, tried to kill the Buddha and so on after he couldn't take over the order. So, because Buddhists can't force anybody to understand or do anything. There will be people who will make mistakes and they'll misunderstand and they'll think this and that, And even the whole, you could say the whole of dualistic Buddhism actually is more or less, leads to like a kind of multi-life psychotic episode. On purpose. And what I mean by that is a kind of thinking that nirvana is, and therefore attaining something like living at the event horizon of clear light, but thinking of it as isolated from the forms that it creates, clear light creates. So staying in like a vestibule of clear light, which would be known as the formless realm beyond consciousness and unconsciousness.
Right.
And that's actually the vestibule of clear light, for sure, where you think where you would take rebirth as a disembodied deity. And you would think you're free from all connection with anybody else. That's why I said psychotic.
Right.
You would be completely incommunicado with everybody else. And you would become over millennia or billions of perhaps years in that situation. And you would become incredibly stupid because you wouldn't exercise your mind on anything. So then you fall to the animal kingdom.
Right.
Eventually. So I'd only thought of that lately in the suffering of the gods, which is the hardest suffering to really understand that it's suffering. So Buddha did teach that, and he taught that to all the mendicants. But then he also, although he wouldn't quite say what is nirvana, is there a self after nirvana? What is it? He wouldn't say.
Yeah.
He kind of left it like that. But he knew they were rocketing off planet, which males will do.
Yeah.
If they think if they have 200 billion, they're going to
Up
start
and
making
out.
rockets.
Up and out.
They're going to go to Mars. And then they're going to eat French fries with Matt Damon. He's up there growing potatoes. Right? Seriously. Seriously. That's what they're going to do, to get away from washing dishes and dealing with the funkiness of life, like a Buddha does. But because they don't know that a Buddha does that, and yet it's all uncreated. So a Buddha does that utterly orgasmically, actually. I think.
Yeah.
That's why he has his head nearly burst open.
Right.
That's like
Ushnisha Vijaya.
What?
popped out of his head.
What?
There's the story of Ushnisha Vijaya.
Yes,
One
yes,
of the Taras
of course.
came out of his head when he
Yes.
was teaching, and
Yes.
she taught, I think, the Prajnaparamita Sutra.
Yes, the Ushnisha
So
Conqueress.
that's right.
Yes.
So she's one of the
Sure.
21. They're all
Yes. She's a
Taras.
long lifer. She holds Amitabha in one hand.
Right.
Right? Right? She does. So anyway,
what is this text?
they cribbed this. This is Gaelic religious people, and they cribbed it from Martin Wilson's books. I couldn't find Wilson's books, so I brought this. Atisha system. Oh, victorious Ushnisha Tara. There she is.
There she is.
Sundar number Jema. Chatsel tuttāre hunyige. Dödan chonam namka gama chikten dumbo shabji nande. Luba mever gupor nirma. Homage to she who with tuttāre and hun fills the sky with all things good, who holds the power to invoke all forces and treads even the 7 worlds under her feet. I don't know what the 7 worlds are. What are the 7 worlds?
I don't know what the 7 worlds
Maybe
are.
he probably said.
That's a good question.
Usually there's the 3 worlds or something.
Right.
Underworld, the
Right.
darkness.
Tenzin, I want to ask you,
What's that?
in India,
Yes, dear.
we don't hear much about Tara, those of us who are not.
You don't hear much about Tara, but do you hear about Durga and Kali? And but Tara exists as a Hindu goddess too, right? But she's just not important,
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't hear about it so much growing up.
really.
Yeah, I didn't. So I'm
Well, that's
just
not
wondering-
surprising.
Yeah, so can you give us a little bit of relationship of,
Sure.
because you said she's always been there,
Yes.
but now what we mostly experience in our Indian tradition are other names of the goddess, forms of the goddess, like Durga, Kali, and all her emanations, and then also Saraswati and Lakshmi, and in this
Yes,
way.
yes.
So I'm just wondering, what is her relationship, or how do you see?
Well, it could be that once the Muslims burned all the Buddhist institutions and the monks altogether, and by that time, the patriarchal Brahmins were not really supporting nunneries, female mendicant communities. They were not. They were very weak in their support. So I think they'd more or less vanished, as Buddha predicted, really around the time of Gupta. You don't see that much about them. And but on the other hand, Tantra is very big, and so there is a different level of respect and admiration and even awe about women in another level that has been completely lost. Just like the first Indian scholars who, like Oxford trained type, and also Sanskrit Indian high school trained, and then Oxford trained Indian Sanskrit scholars who discovered some of the tantras that were remaining in Sanskrit. They were very embarrassed about Tantra. They agreed with the Europeans that it was horrible and vulgar, and they wanted to minimize its role and pretend it hardly was there. And they were really neurotic about it. And so they lent themselves as Indians to the idea that Tantra is something decadent.
Yeah.
And even with the Indian kind of fear of communalism, which they rightly have, modern India, in order to avoid blaming the Muslims for the destruction of the whole Buddhist thing, they said it was the decadence of Tara that destroyed it. The monks themselves all got horny and
Tantra?
ran out, and they got all decadent, and nobody cared about the Buddhists anymore, which is totally false. But for sure, once they wrecked everything, and they also wrecked many Hindu temples, but they couldn't touch village Hinduism because the villages worked to produce the wealth that they lived on. The Mughals and these kind of Persians and Tajiks and people who came in, unified tribes, fierce tribes unified under Islam. And the Islam only contributed to unification, and they didn't get the version of Muhammad's own gentle side. They didn't get that. So they were very destructive of that, and they didn't know what a monk was because they never had monks in Islam. And maybe they associated somehow with Christians, but they didn't know about Christian monks, probably. The culture did. And they beat them up and took over Constantinople from them, right? So after that, maybe they lessened or they called what the Buddhists called Tara by some other name, Durga or something. And the reason might be, if you go to the Calcutta Museum or the Patna Museum and you sneak up on some statue, standing statue, forearm statue of males, sorry, you can't tell whether it's Vishnu or Avalokiteshvara until you see what they're holding in their hand. They're really exactly the same.
Interesting.
And if you see any statues of Tara, you can't tell except by other clues whether that's Tara or Durga or somebody else, whatever they're going to call it. So that there's sort of conservative Brahmins like Ramanuja and others who even accuse Shankara of being a crypto-Buddhist, Prachanabauda, because his non-dualism was so radical that it blocked their idea that caste came from God. You know, so by Nirguna Brahman, by saying Brahman is Nirguna, and then that equalizes, that relativizes all forms of divinity and so forth, like the Buddhists did.
Yeah.
They didn't just say they weren't atheists, they didn't say there were no gods, but they relativized them.
Yeah.
They made them into like, Governor Cuomo,
Right. They exist like we exist.
What?
Gods exist in the manner that we exist.
Yes, it's what?
We appear, yet we're empty.
Yes.
Right? So gods, that's what I've heard explained. Yeah,
Right.
gods exist in the same way we exist.
Yes, of course. Sure. They're also empty.
Yes.
Yeah. And Buddha does the same way. That's how when you do a Tara yoga, this is a wonderful thing that I had ignored completely for 50 years. I just rediscovered teaching somebody else. I had to look it up.
Yeah.
When you invite Tara to be in front of you in order to then be Tara yourself, but first you invite her in front of you. But when you do that, not to be in awe of her, you realize that both of you are suchness.
That's right.
Both of you are empty equally. So you're just the same as her,
Yes.
as a deity, because she's a Buddha deity. When they say deity yoga, I don't like it. I decided it should be Buddha deity yoga, because it's a Buddha showing a deity form. And actually, most of those forms in tantras, they are actually on purpose Tushita level deities.
Oh.
They're desire realm deities. They're not form realm deities.
Oh.
They purposely adopt the side of it because they look either male or female.
Yeah.
Because of whatever.
Right.
So the passion and intensity that you need in advanced levels of tantra.
Right.
And so there's this amazing thing. I also written on that when they see a young monk in the Tibetan monastery that they think the senior ones think has a really good promise in tantric practice and maybe could do a long retreat, etc., they discourage them from meditating the four immeasurables before they get into tantra. They discourage them. Because then they get into this ungendered level, sort of abstract, sublimated love energy,
Right.
and they feel they're too cooled out. They don't have a certain kind of intensity
They need the
that they need.
passion.
But I was so shocked when I read it. And of course, that makes sense. That makes sense.
But I love what you were just saying about the Buddha deity yoga, that moment where you realize that you're not separate, that you've never been separate
That's right.
from Buddha, from
Yeah.
Tāre,
That's right.
and that union.
Yes, and that also. And in the scholarly ones, they say that your Buddha nature or your Buddha womb is emptiness.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
yeah,
But then on the other hand, Dharmakaya is also emptiness.
right.
And so, but also Dharmakaya also is personally experienced by Buddha as being their emptiness.
Right.
So that means Buddha experiencing his emptiness he experiences in each of us at our super subtle level.
Yeah.
So and then that means he also then connects to all of our other suffering levels.
That's how it works.
So but that's his great connection.
Yes.
Is he thinks he's us
That's
having this chat here, and not he.
They.
That's like
They
Vasubandhu says it. In Vasubandhu's
Yeah.
commentary on Maitreya says that in the Mahayana Sutta Alankara.
Right.
The future Buddha says, he says, we never say there's one Buddha, we never say there are many Buddhas. He says, in the Dharmakaya, there's no difference between Buddhas. So they also think they're each other. They feel they are same, all of them, as well as all other unenlightened beings. But in the Rupakaya form, at the Sambhogakaya level,
Sambhoga.
each one of them gets to individually enjoy in their own way, being the same as everybody else. So you don't say there's just one, and you don't say there's just many. That's kind of fun, isn't
That's
it?
great. Beautiful. Thank you.
So about coming back to Hinduism,
Yeah.
His Holiness has now adopted a fourth aim of life. Only recently, maybe started talking about it about 5 years ago, when he hit 80. Somehow 80 seems to be a good age. I'm 80 this year. Anyway, when he hit 80, he started talking about this as his fourth aim.
What are the three?
The first one is, as a human being, religion of kindness, common human values, including seeing secularists, humanists as spiritual in their own way. just rebelling against a domineering orthodoxy of churches. So that's as a human being, universal values of love and compassion and nonviolence, blah, blah, blah. As a Buddhist monk, cultivating mutual understanding and tolerance and cooperation between world religious traditions. Again, considering secular humanists like a world religious tradition of 1+ billion people who don't believe in any particular religion. So that's the second one. Third one is as a Tibetan, trying to reestablish the culture of his people, although he has said he doesn't care about having an independent Tibet if they became, fighters, if they dropped A-bombs on China, if they did anything like that, doesn't care about it. Only because they created this beautiful mainstream Buddhist culture, as did certain Indian communities, actually, that we don't know which are which. But some of the various nations of India, because there always have been many, in Buddhist time they were called 16 city-states, 16 Janapadas, they call them. And then they eventually made an empire, Magadha, and then Maurya. But by conquering the other ones. But there were some of them that they got wasted by outside people because they became more gentle. So when Buddhism becomes mainstream, that's when nonviolence becomes mainstream. The military profession becomes dishonored, and people don't want to do it. And even like blacksmiths, it's sort of a little thing because making weapons, And therefore women are being less maltreated because men are less desensitized because with the military training makes them do. Wilhelm Reich brilliantly describes that, by the way, brilliantly. Yeah. So military posture, how it cuts off inner sensations.
Yeah.
And it links into police states. Any militaristic state will be a police state, and then the family will be a police family.
Yeah.
He does that, just genius. Yeah. So
this is the 3.
The 4th.
Fourth is encouraging India as a son of India, because he says he's lived twice as long in India as he lived in Tibet, or more than twice. And therefore his body is more made of rice and dal than of momo. And as a son of India, and especially son of Nalanda, and the other thousands of great monastic universities, he wants to bring back the Indic inner science into its proper place in the center of the scientific culture of the world, but starting with India, because it's India's own thing. And he doesn't want them to discriminate that, that's Buddhist, because they have their yoga systems, have it, this and that, their philosophies, their Vedanta has it, etc. Although it's always constrained. It's like they took their Shankara, and they have their Shankaracharyas, but they busted Shankara's philosophy because it was too like Buddhist. Yes. Because when it goes to the absolute non-duality, then that relativizes any kind of caste structure or divinity form, and you have Ramanuja getting up there and saying, no, we don't want that Shankara. We can't be equal with God. God is like a mother cat, and we're a little kitten, and God picks us up by the back of the neck and takes us to heaven. And we always remain inferior and subordinate to God in heaven. In other words, that's Ramanuja and company, right? That happens. But the non-dual element in Hinduism, the ahimsa element in Hinduism, does not come from the Vedas. It comes from the Shramanas, not only Buddha, but Buddha, the Jains, and about 4 or 5 other these movements from probably hundreds, but we know of 6 main ones. And then the Upanishads encompass that, but try to keep it linked up to the old wartime Vedas, the good old wartime Vedas. Yeah. And then the last mandala of the Vedas seems this mystery and who's God and what's going on. But the earlier ones are pure sacrificial. And Indra, when you give Indra soma, so he'll go out and stamp on your enemy in the battle. It's not exactly yogic, transcendence and like no way, So, but that part people don't notice, and they go, it's always Vedic. We're a Vedic culture, but they're not. They're half Vedic, half Shramanic. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And guess what? Like I told the Mongolians, a few presidents ago in our meeting, I said, you guys have a really big Buddha on a hill outside of town, and you have a really big Genghis Khan in the back of your parliament. The Buddha's bigger, luckily, I said. I said, well, you really should try to remember, though. And the young people that I've talked to are maybe not aware that internationally, the Mongolians are much esteemed for the Buddha, and he's much more popular than Genghis Khan.
Nice.
But they are bitter because they got messed up. It did, like what happened to India 1,000 years ago happened to Tibet and Mongolia in the 20th century. But because that's, when you become a gentle culture, you become vulnerable.
Yeah.
So it's only safe now. It's not only safe now for everyone to be gentle. That's why we need the women leaders and at every level, family, everywhere, at least equal. But once they're equal, officially they'll be the leaders, of course, because they know what's going on, you know. You know the joke about the sperms.
Why don't you tell us?
Yeah,
You know that
tell
joke?
us. I feel like I've heard this
I need to
eons
laugh
ago.
again.
You know it?
Tell
Yeah.
us a joke.
You know why it takes so many to fertilize one egg?
Why?
You don't know that joke?
I think I heard this back in high school. Just tell me again.
Not one of them wants to stop and ask for directions.
Right!
I know, I'm sure you heard it. Everyone knows
I
that
totally heard
joke.
that. Yeah, that's a good one.
That's an old joke.
Good.
So that's the point, you know. So they will be the leaders at that point. But now, no, because the point is now the danger is not defending yourself against conquest. The danger is if any last idiot thinks they're going to conquer everybody else.
Right.
Because everybody's nuclear armed, everybody. And this whole thing about the Iranians and the nuclear, the Pakistanis have plenty of nuclear.
Yeah.
So there's a Muslim bomb. So if they're going to go fanatic and crazy, then they've already got the equipment. So the point is, nobody can use any of those things.
Right.
The fierce deities will not allow it. They will not. The fierce angels.
I was going to say, do you want
So,
to meditate?
That's exactly.
but I want to finish this. So,
Yes.
so therefore, I'm doing this Vajra Yoga training thing myself nowadays.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to make no difference between the Buddhists and the Hindus, yogas, and the Buddhists and the Hindu tantrikas. And actually, there's a warrant for it in Nagarjuna's 5 stages thing. On the upper stages, he says, "Oh no, the Siddhas, we don't care if you call Vajradhara Vishnu and Shiva, whatever you call any of them. We don't care. They don't care." You know, and so there's no, because it's just life, you know, it's just reality, you know.
Yeah.
So they're not into some sort of orthodox thing, you know, and competition, those kind of people are not. You know, but the orthodoxies, of course, they get into their thing and they struggle for market share, you know.
Right.
And they get like the RSS, you know, and Modi, stupid bunch of laws they're passing about not considering Muslim citizens. It's really terrible. And it won't work, actually. And the virus is telling them so, you know.
We thought that to just as our time together comes to a close, which is sad.
I know.
which
I
is
am
sad.
completely talk.
No, it's great.
No, it's
But
too
what
much.
we would like to ask you, we were
Yes.
both on the same wavelength,
Yes.
which is we'd love to ask you to guide us in a practice.
In a
Even
what?
just 5 minutes.
Oh, sure.
Just a brief
Sure.
drop right in.
Okay, well, let's
to
do
the mother,
it.
to
Let's
that
do a quick.
whatever.
Let's do a quick
Please.
long life tower. But you could do it better than me.
No, we want you
Okay,
to
let's
lead
do
us in
it.
something.
Okay, let's go, everybody. Tāre, tuttāre, svāhā, tāre, tuttāre, svāhā. Okay, people, please do meditative mode. Don't look at the screen. Sit up straight. You know, tuck your chin a little. Don't jam it down. Just tuck it. Breathe through the nostrils if possible. Put your hands together in some way, flat on one another, or link the fingers, depending on whatever. Cross-legged, or if you're cross ankles, if you're sitting in a chair. Okay? And you think and say, Om tāre, tuttāre, ture, svāhā. Oh, yeah, we just repeat it after me when I do it first. Om tāre, tuttāre, ture, svāhā.
Om tāre, tuttāre, ture, svāhā.
Okay, Om tāre, we'll do bit by bit for some of them, we don't know 100 people. Om tāre, tuttāre,
Om tāre, tuttāre,
ture, svāhā.
ture, svāhā.
Om tāre, tuttāre,
Om tāre, tuttāre,
ture, svāhā.
ture, svāhā.
Okay, now all together. Om tāre, tuttāre, ture, svāhā.
Om tāre, tuttāre, ture, svāhā.
Very good. When you say the T, try not to breathe a lot of air out, like T. Try to go ta where there's very little air, and then you won't run out of breath quickly when you recite that mantra. Okay, now invite Tara down from her boat in the stars, where she's sitting with Shakyamuni Buddha, and invite her to come and sit in front of you on a nice cushioned chair you arrange for her. Okay, and imagine that she comes and sits in front of you. Okay, and think of her as the white Tara, and her meaning her legs are crossed in a yogic posture. Her hands are, one hand is down by her knee in the boon-granting, gift-giving gesture. The other one is at her, holding up like this, holding her stem of a flower. And she's smiling at you. And then realize that you and she seems, if you have a good visualization ability, you might be very awed that even if you've ever seen a Tibetan icon of her or something, seeing such a beautiful being sitting there with you. But if you're like me, you just have a flash of a picture in your mind and then you can't hold it, but then never mind, just feel that she is there. And then feel that you and she are both the same, that you are made of the same clear light of emptiness. You're like made of crystal or something. Transparency. Clear light is clear more than light. It's like a transparency. It's not bright. But you and she have the same emptiness, clear light, indivisible reality. And then she's happy that you can imagine yourself someday, and even right now, being just the same as her, even if you're a male in this life. You're also white Tara, just like her, smiling at each other, like as if practically you were her emanation. So you feel a feeling of peacefulness, of majesty, self-confidence, a kind of calm, peaceful joy, satisfaction everywhere in your body, especially kind of warm feeling around the heart, between the heart and the navel and up to the throat, like in the trunk of the body. And then imagine that you have a blessing, and then you feel yourself as if you were in an energy field, like in the transporter beam in Star Trek, of a golden color, that there's like little sparkles of golden light in a force field, egg-shaped force field, surrounding you completely. It's not blocking your breathing, because it doesn't block the air, but it's just a light egg around you, gold, golden light egg. And what it is the essence of the element of earth, of solidity. And then imagine that from the atoms of the earth in this field around you, the energy of durability and solidity is coming into your bones and your muscles and your joints, and you're feeling all the earth element in your own body is being reinforced and rejuvenated from this golden earth. Mother Earth, through her own atoms and molecules, is giving you her essential strength. And enjoy that. Then outside of that egg, it itself, imagine it is encased in a slightly bigger egg, which is diamond, crystal, white. And it is glistening outside the golden one. The golden one is still there, but you don't need to pay attention to it. And the white one you pay attention to. And it is sparkling with like diamond sparkles. And then this is the element of water, of cohesiveness, fluidity, smoothness, coolness. And imagine that this element of earth, which also is a form of tāre, of water, also a form of tāre, the mamaki form, it also radiates its strength to the water element in your body. So all of your fluids, your bloodstream, your lymph, even the myelin sheath of your nervous system, your brain, the slimeware, what I call the slimeware computer, all of that is filled up with completely rejuvenated with the water essence. And enjoy that. Tāre is sitting in front, still there, blessing you and being delighted to see you to imagine this. Don't be upset if you can't hold the images stably in your mind. Just let them flash there. And then again, outside of that, you see a ruby egg. Imagine a ruby egg, ruby energy. And of course, this is the element of fire, which is just temperature, really. It does not always like a flaming, blazing thing, but it can be blazing, but it also can be cooling. It's a temperature. It's the heat element. And its molecules also go in and energize the heat element in your body, your digestive metabolism, your inner warmth, your inner Dumo fire from your navel center that warms you like Milarepa, which you may not have discovered yet, but anyway, you have it. So that the third egg is a ruby one, and it's rejuvenating the warmth of your system, of your body. Enjoy that. The other ones, the earth, gold, and the white water are also working. They can all work together. And then outside of that, you imagine a green emerald egg. And that emerald egg, that is especially in Tantric Mandala, especially associated with Samayatala, green tāre, miracle working tāre. And it's very, very strong. It moves right through the water and fire and wind and earth because it's motion itself, it's energy itself. And it reinforces the energy in your system, the electricity, your nerve impulses, your thought storms, your energies that are not even in molecules, that are subparticulate energies. And by the way, all these things are nourishing up the billion beings in your microbiome, who are your friends, in your engine room there. And then finally, outside of that, you see a deep blue, a sapphire, but translucent, a light sapphire, or maybe aquamarine egg around you, around all of these other eggs. And then that is the space element, Dharma, Dhatu, Ishwari, the goddess. And it is opening up any cramps or kinks in your nervous system, in your muscle system, in your lymph system, your blood system, any blockages and things, and giving more space, sending space energy. They have some strange idea of what they call a space particle, which I don't quite get that. But anyway, space unit or something. And you feel that way. And then I think finally, traditionally, which I don't fully understand, but the whole thing is wrapped in a brownish, a maroon brownish type of egg. And I don't really know what element that is, frankly. I never bothered to, I apologize, I didn't really research that. But I think it means to bring it all back to earth, maybe. It's like the color good soil, which is, of course, earth. Any particular thing like soil has earth element, water element, temperature element, heat element, and energy element, and space element. They all have. So these are abstractions in a way. It's not like there's just one little grain of dirt. It's just the earth. But so this brown one, I think, is just bringing it back to earth. And you just enjoy being in these eggs of light. And they just rejuvenate you and energize you. And they channel Tara's healing blessing to you and to us in every possible way. And whether we can successfully visualize it or not, whether we are especially blessed and initiated to actually do this as a practice, or whatever it is, doesn't matter, because it's always there with us. We can think that, rightly think that, because these enlightened beings are not some being far away and high above and all this thing, like in some sort of authority pyramid. They are totally with us and around us at all times. And actually now I just remember what I mainly want to convey to the wonderful Nina and Chandra and Genevieve and all of you who are here doing this particular rising weekend or rising day. And that is that one of Tara's greatest gifts to us, if we really develop a good focus on her. And they will tell you, I'm out of time, they will tell you about how she saves you from the 8 dangers. And there are thousands of stone-carved sculptures all over India, still in museums, and there were surely hundreds, tens of thousands of them in ancient time. But they're wrecked by the people who had an iconic tradition, of course. Many of them, I'm sure. But there's still enough of her saving you from the 8 dangers. You just call on Tara, she'll save you. She'll come there somehow, some way. You might not recognize her, but you'll be saved. And so if you do that, you might learn to develop a basic faith and trust, not in Tara exclusively, but she will help you to learn to have that faith and trust in reality itself. That is to say, in the heart of whatever God you may worship, or even in the area of the speed of infinite mass light that is everywhere, or if you're a secular humanist and materialist, or whatever, that reality of even death and life is good, and it is the default position. There can be bad things can happen, and it can be terrible, and no one makes light of pain, but which is the worst thing for any sensitive being. But reality is trustworthy. The deepest level of reality is pure goodness. And theistic people think of it as the goodness in the heart of God. And the Buddhists think of it as bliss, void, indivisible, or even you can call void freedom, actually. So bliss, freedom, indivisible is what it is. And that's what Tara wants to open doors for us to learn about. So to give us a sense that when all else fails, we can count on happiness. If we kind of let go, if we kind of, as the hip-hop people say, give it up, we will be embraced by the universe. Because the universe is not out to get us, at the ultimate level. And that ultimate level infuses itself completely in the relative level, actually. It's just we don't recognize it there because of our misconceptions and we have been terrorized by our cultures to control us. Kings and high priests from ancient time, east and west, have told us that reality is scary, it's really bad, and we need them to save us from that really difficult reality. Whereas actually reality is good, and it wants to save us itself, in whatever form we accept being saved by. Okay? Thank you, guys.
Oh, beautiful.
You guys are
Beautiful.
so
Thank you.
wonderful. And when we do something, if this was a practice for any of us, we dedicate the merit of that to quickly become noble Taras ourselves, completely capable, not omnipotent, but I call it omnicompetent. Omnicompetent to help people by love, with the omnicompetence of true love for beings and true compassion, and meaning empathy for them, being unable to bear their suffering and having the love energy, the bliss energy, which is the bliss, to help them find a way out of it. And we dedicate ourselves to being a being like that so we can quickly help other beings become like that and be truly free of suffering themselves equally. Okay?
Sounds good.
Tōjīche.
Tūjīche, Kandinche.
Tōjīche. Tōjīche.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
And thank you, Beata. And thank you, Anna. Isn't Anna the other lady? who's
Kristen.
running the-
No, Kristen's here. Kristen's here.
Oh,
So we're
Christiana.
gonna
That's Christiana. That's right. Christiana. I got part of the name.
Kristen.
Christiana.
Kristen.
Christy.
At any rate, just for the audience, we're gonna do a quick bio break. Is that it, Chandra? And switch camera views.
That's
Okay.
right. We'll come back for some more bliss with Nina and her band.
Unfortunately, I will miss the good part, which is you guys. So I do have a dinner
You're
party
welcome
back
to
there, but they're not actually waiting for me. but
Next
they're
time.
Supposed to save me a plate. They're at my house. Actually.
Infinite
Bundle.
gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you. So
That
nice
is
to
so
meet you.
beautiful.
Really
Thank
wonderful.
you for trans.
Hi, folks. So we're just taking a couple minutes to organize the Nina portion of our program. And I think we're ready to go. We'll be ready to go in about 20 seconds or so.
Here we are. So let's, yeah. Can you reach over there and turn that volume down completely on the top? Yeah, great. Thank you. So thank you for all of you for joining us today. We are just going to continue with the mantra that Tenzin Bob Thurman introduced us to. Many of you might know it already. Om tāre, tuttāre, ture, soha. We'll do it in the Tibetan way. Okay, that's how I heard it. Beata, if you hear any trouble for any reason with the sound, just put it in the chat for me, okay?
Absolutely. It's sounding good at the moment.
Om tāre, tuttāre, ture. I'm singing the wrong one again.
All right, we'll do that one. Let's do that.
Oh, no. I'm going to get this right. Hold on, please. Just in case you're wondering what we're talking about, Chandra and I and Genevieve are working on a collection of melodies to the 21 tāre mantras. And so we've been practicing them so much that that's what's rolling around in my head. So what we will do, though, is what we did earlier with Bob. So we'll just sing together whenever you're ready, okay? Om tāre, tuttāre, ture, soha. 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 tāre tuttāre ture soha. Om tāre tuttāre ture soha. Om tāre tuttāre ture soha. One more time. Om tāre tuttāre ture soha. 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 Om tāre tuttāre soha. Tara comes swiftly to protect us and save us. So this next chant is to Saraswati. Saraswati is a goddess of many things, including art, music, learning. But for me, I see her as goddess of practice and discernment, inner knowledge, wisdom, and discrimination. And she helps move us along the path of practice and life. The words are namastasye mātā, Saraswati, shārāde Devi. So shārāde Devi is another name for Saraswati. And then nārayāni Om. And then we'll end with a few repetitions of the Saraswati mantra with the seed syllable Aim. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Namastasye mātā, Saraswati shārāde Devi. Namastasye mātā, Saraswati shārāde Devi. Namastasye mātā, Saraswati shārāde Devi. Namastasye mātā, namastasye mātā Saraswati shārāde Devi namastasye mātā Saraswati shārāde namastasye mātā Saraswati shārāde Devi namastasye mātā Saraswati shārāde namastasye mātā Saraswati shārāde Devi namastasye 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 mātā Saraswati shārāde Devi namastasye mātā Saraswati shārāde Devi Nārayāni Om Nārayāni Om Nārayāni Om mātā Nārayāni Om Nārayāni Om Nārayāni Om mātā Nārayāni Om Nārayāni Om Nārayāni Om mātā Nārayāni Om Nārayāni Om Nārayāni Om Nārayāni Om Nārayāni Om mātā Om Nārayāni Om Nārayāni Om Nārayāni Om mātā mātā Om Nārayāni Om Nārayāni Om Nārayāni Om mātā mātā Om Nārayāni Om Nārayāni Om Nārayāni Om mātā mātā together. Om Ai Saraswati Namaha. 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 So I'm going to start with a short prayer. It's like an invocation to the goddess Durga. It's called Devi Pranamah, bowing down to the goddess. And then we'll sing some call and response, where I'll sing some names of the goddess, and you respond with Shri Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma. That's sort of the universal mantra to the mother. Om Durgam Shivam Shanti Karim Brahmanim Brahmana Priyam Sarvaloka Pranetrincha Pranamami Sada Shivam Mangalam Shobhanam Shuddham Nishkalam Paramam Kalam Vishveshwari Vishwamatam Chandikam Pranamamyam Sarvadevamahim Devi Sarvarogabhayapaham Brahmesha Vishnu Namitam Pranamami Sada Shivam Vindhyastham Vindhyanilayam Divyasthana Nivashinim Yoginim Yoga Jananim Chandikam Pranamamyam Ishana Mataram Devi Ishwarin Ishwara Priyam Pranatosmi Sada Durga Samsaranavatarini Shri Ma Jai Ma Jai Jai Ma 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 Jaya Jagadambe Ma Durga Jaya Jai Ma Jai Jai Ma Shri Ma Jai Ma Jai Jai Ma Mahadevi Lalita Shri Ma Jai Ma Jai Jai Ma Shri Ma Jai Ma Jai Jai Ma Shri Ma Jai Ma Jai Jai Ma Chamunde Kali Durga Ma Shri Ma Jai Ma Jai Jai Ma Shri Ma Jai Ma Jai Jai Ma Shri Ma Jai Ma Jai Jai Ma Chamunde Kali Durga Ma Shri Ma Jai Ma Jai Jai Ma Shri Ma Jai Ma Jai Jai Ma. Shri Ma Jai Jai Ma. Shri Ma Jai Ma Jai Jai Ma. Shri Ma Jai Jai Ma. Shri Ma Jai 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 Ma Jai Jai Ma. So our last chant this evening is for one of the 21 tāras. She's called the 12th tāra, Tashi Donjima, the bestower of auspiciousness. And the mantra is Om tāre tuttāre ture mangalam, which is auspiciousness, Shri Mahapani svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre ture mangalam Shri Mahapani svāhā. No Shri. Mangalam Shri.
Yes, Shri Shri.
I really am getting all my mantras mixed up. Okay, Om tāre tuttāre ture mangalam
Shri
Mahapani svāhā. Okay, it is.
100%.
All right. Kristen's got it in the chat. Okay, good. Om tāre tuttāre ture mangalam Shri Mahapani svāhā.
Tāre tuttāre ture.
Mangalam Shri Mahapani svāhā. Let's sing it together. Om tāre tuttāre ture mangalam Shri Mahapani svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre ture mangalam Shri Mahapani svāhā. Again. Om tāre tuttāre ture mangalam Shri Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tāre Tuttāre ture. 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 Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. O great goddess Tara, help us protect and save this planet with your cooling energy. Help us keep it green. Help us care for all beings who live in our sphere. May we be filled with kindness and compassion towards all beings, and may our practice be of benefit to all beings everywhere. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you all for joining us this evening. We're so blessed to be able to share this sacred space together, and now even more so that we can be together a little bit. So I want to thank all the Taras who are here today, Lalita, Mirabai, Genevieve, and Keli Lalita on the drums, and the Taras who are sitting on the other side of the camera. And of course, Chandra Devi. And we're so grateful that we had Tenzin Bob Thurman with us. And Beata and Kristen, thank you for your help. And Tibet House and Menla for housing us and creating this beautiful space. We look forward to seeing you soon. I think we will schedule another Wisdom Rising in May, though we don't have a date yet. So we'll announce that in the follow-up email that comes your way. Thank you so much.
Nina, that was so beautiful. Chandra and all of the Taras on that side. We can't thank you enough. And thank you everyone for coming. It's been a really beautiful Sunday gathering. As your last note hit, Nina, the sunset. So thank you very much.
Thanks again, Beata and Kristen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.
Kristen.